segments of like little cartoons from way back when that had the logo in there or something like that.
Yeah, the commercials
from a commercial.
The commercials were awesome too for all that stuff.
Power, Nintendo power. Oh god!
Yeah, they always how they advertise that too. They would be like, "You didn't have the power unless you had Nintendo power. Power? You didn't know nothing unless you had Nintendo power."
It's like that announcement saying that they turned it squeaky. Street Fighter.
Yeah, I was telling him like part of the reason I like Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition more and those ones before like Super Street Fighter 2 and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo when they added more guys onto it is because the announcer annoyed me. Like the one for the original Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition was like round 1. But you go into Super Street Fighter 2 when they added more characters, which were awesome in stages. But the announcer sounded like round 1, and then you got Guile throwing a Sonic Boom instead of going from Sonic Boom. It was going Sonic Boom. It's like, did this guy get hit somewhere? Did Johnny Cage come in and do his low blow, or did he suck down too much helium? That's what it made me think. Like, it just drove me nuts. Didn't fit. Like, why are you guys throwing the helium?
Yeah, what happened?
But helium balloon sucking down. The guy turning his voice into. I don't know if you know Mortal Kombat was originally supposed to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme game.
Really?
Yeah. That's why Johnny Cage is based on the split punch in the groin.
Oh, yeah.
That's from Jean-Claude doing it in Bloodsport. But that originally was supposed to be a Jean-Claude Van Damme game.
So he had Retribution was in this.
And they couldn't get the licensing down or whatever with him. I can't remember how it fell through, but
is that why he went in Street Fighter movie?
I don't know. I remember
that movie back in the day.
That movie is so cheesy. As a Street Fighter fan, I was just
like
nowadays, if you watch it, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
You know how bad it is.
Yeah.
It's funny in a way. You're like
a B-rated.
I thought Raul Julia did great as Bison.
Yeah. Oh, he's awesome as Bison. The other stuff, like they made Charlie and Blanca the same dude. Like they did an experiment on him.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
No, Charlie.
They tried pulling Wolverine out of that.
Yeah.
Charlie's a dude. Like, no, like, I'm trying to think. The Street Fighter movie video game that they did for Saturn, they did an arcade game too with the actual actors, live action like Mortal Kombat, but they played like Street Fighter moves. I love that thing on Saturn. They had it on Saturn. It wasn't as good as the Street Fighter game, but you got Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile.
Yeah,
and all the actors are those characters in the game. Cool. So Raul Julia is Bison in the
that's cool
in the fighting game.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in one of them. Or is this live? Okay.
Yeah, we're doing random stuff all of a sudden.
Yeah, we'll get
round 2.
We'll get on. Yeah, we'll get spot. We'll get back here when you guys are done.
We're just talking. Yeah,
talking. Shooting a breeze.
Yeah.
Because they're talking, reminded of old games and.
Yeah, we're talking about like when you had a game and then there was a movie and a soundtrack for some musician or whatever, it all tied in together, advertising and promotion. Yeah.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about the whole idea of like the controllers too. We were talking, he brought up the Power Glove for Nintendo.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
And how they advertised that in the Wizard movie. Like, the glove was like so amazing.
Yeah.
But then when you actually tried it, because one of my friends had, awful.
Yeah.
That thing, you game moving, doing this, and moving your guy, and
one person had it, and it was dumb.
It was like the pad you're mentioning for track and field. It's like
that is awful. Yeah, because I told you about the Angry Video Gamer did a segment on that. And he's trying to jog on the pad, do track and field. No way. Then no way you could compete and go as fast as you could.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the pad, like the track and field. It's like, no way I'm going to be able to run on this thing fast enough.
I think everybody did that.
Yeah, I remember that now. You say, holy cow, I haven't thought about that in years.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, going to a friend's house and they had that, and that's what we would do.
Yeah, you ain't going to be able to run that fast and do that, no. Because you'd be like, crawling along, trying to do it.
Well, it's cool how these brought together now with technology. How we have multiplayer, so you sit in a chair, but at the same time, there's stuff that it's nice getting back to the classic.
Plug and play.
It's a lot.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. All right. Well,
we were on.
Like I do instructions.
Super Nintendo.
All right. Hey, good evening. Welcome back to Game, Chat, and Chill. This is part 2 of the podcast that we started with Deranged Dave and Shane. And we left off on what controllers were we left off on?
Super Nintendo. Yep.
Super Nintendo.
Okay, so we left off on the Super Nintendo, and let me take a look back here. The question was, what are your likes or dislikes on the evolution of the controllers? And we're giving them a 1 to a 5-star rating as we go along.
Are we talking about a particular controller?
Yeah, we just got done.
On?
Yeah, we're continuing on.
So it's
We were,
So
next level would be either would be.
and then the ones that I'm missing, you can fill in for us because there's just certain game systems you can't.
Yeah, the next generation after that would be PlayStation, Saturn, and N64 after that because that's how they came out. Saturn came out, and then surprise launch was
I do have a PlayStation controller, the original, without the analog sticks, but I don't have it right now because it's still in storage somewhere.
Let's go with this one since we have it sitting here right a second.
All right.
Because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking.
For those of you that are listening to he's talking about the Nintendo 64 controller.
No.
Learning curve.
Now, there's certain things about it that you're like, okay, it's great with the buttons, 6 button late. I got 8 buttons up here. But the weird thing about this, and they had an analog stick with it, which they started doing that with this. Then PlayStation added the 2 later. This one I'm going to give like a 2, just from the simple fact of the matter is not because of necessarily the button layout or how it feels. It's just when you had to play certain games and you went from going like this, and then all of a sudden it made you move over to here, and you had to do certain things with this, or you had to go like this and use both things. It just Nintendo. That's one thing I like about them, but also hate about them. They try to do different things, which is awesome. They innovate things and do a bunch of different things that people think they'd fail at, with like the Wii and Switch and all that stuff, because they're not as powerful a system, but they killed it with how many systems they sold in their games. But this controller, overall, for certain, this, if you're playing like Super Mario 64, the 3D on it was perfect for this. If you're just playing this, but they had you switching off and on.
This is my usual.
So the overall functionality of it, if you had to keep switching and doing all that stuff, would be a 2. If I was like stuck like this and got playing Mario 64, then I would give it a higher rating than that because of how the analog move. You could just take Mario and go, woo, spin it on a dime, and you're just like, okay, that's 3D gaming that they started moving in that direction with PlayStation and 64 instead of just 2D. And that was awesome. Like, comparative-wise, be able to move Mario on a dime, and stop was awesome, but the control itself is like 2, 2.5. It's like it's just too weird.
I agree. It's same. The only thing that as far as holding on, it seems like you're holding on this and there's something else right here, and I don't know if those just go like this depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, you had to switch during certain games
but
too.
There's a lot going on. I mean, I guess I'd say the same. It depends on the game that was being used, but again, things got better after that. But it is what it is. Always remember this one in the back.
I do have rumble packs.
Oh yeah, you had to do that with like.
Oh yeah, it's back there.
Like Mario.
Oh yeah,
like
the trigger.
Yeah, the trigger. So it had. Like I remember with like Mario Kart 64 was awesome, and like Wave Race and stuff like that. You could use those games because you're stuck with just this. You're not moving back and forth. Like some games, depending on what you're playing, they've had you literally going like this during gameplay, and it's like that's just
playability.
It's just annoying.
Yeah.
But if you were stuck one way or the other using it, that's why I would give that a rating all the way up from 2 to 5. If you had to stick with just that, like. Wave Race was one of those fun games too back in the day.
I think they're trying to have it where it's a regular controller, but when you have to do stuff, it was like holding a joystick set down, and you're already holding it. But at the same time, it's just a lot that they have to contend with. I think.
I do like that they added all the buttons.
They got the colors, to help.
A lot more buttons for a lot more different things because the games were getting more complex at that point. But yeah, 2.5 overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna go along the same. When I first was introduced to Nintendo 64, I was introduced to Mario 64 and Donkey Kong 64, and it was a definite learning curve. I went from what system was I playing at the time? Probably Super Nintendo or PlayStation to the 64, just because I didn't get, like what I was telling you the last time, Shane, is I didn't get into gaming until I was much older. Like I did play a few things here and there when I was a kid, but I didn't get into gaming until I was in my teen years, early 20s kind of thing. And then I was able to buy my own systems because up until that point, it just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started playing this, and then also obviously introduced to the 007.
Oh, GoldenEye.
a GoldenEye game.
First-person shooter.
That wasn't until a little bit later too, but there's a definite learning curve. And I didn't like it, and I always thought it was weird to never use these buttons for anything. And I didn't like how you had to hold this like this. I could never get used to using that part. I always like this right here. And I just remember I played the crap out of Donkey Kong 64 with this thing, and I didn't have a strategy guide back then, which I do now, but the strategy guide is hard to follow for that game. But I would go to GameFAQs.com and I'd have to go to the library because we didn't have internet back then.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah,
the old dial-up.
Go to the library and then pay 10 cents a copy for them to print out a page, and that was my strategy guide. So I go there, I'd get like $1 worth of printed out sheets, play the game up until that point. I'd have to go back to the library, so I couldn't even play the game at all further until I went back to the library. But yeah, so that's my memories with this. But anyways, I'm gonna have to give it like a 2-star because it's just. I mean, it's cool looking.
Yeah.
But as far as like usability,
they're trying to innovate and go in a different direction.
You can tell they're exploring.
They did help out with, like, they're the ones doing the analog stick before PlayStation started doing it. So with 3D gaming going more in a 3D route, and then 2D, that works. Like if you're playing Mario 64, like on a dime, you can spin them in one spot and you'll stop on a dime. Like the control for that, but it's the switching. I can't remember which games because they had a lot of different games for that. Like Shadows of the Empire was awesome for that. Doom 64, Wave Race 64, all these. They're all named 64. It's hilarious. The rest of the games that they had, the WCW games were awesome. But like there's certain games you had to keep going like this during the gameplay, and it just. Okay, I got these buttons and I got to do this, and then the D-pad too, and then the stick. It just didn't make any sense. If you're sticking to one or the other, fine.
Yep.
Like the trigger was in a perfect spot. You're the one that reminded us of it. Got a trigger under there. But if you're playing certain games and just holding on to the analog and the buttons like that, and you had the trigger under there, fine. Like you're playing GoldenEye or something.
Yeah.
Boop, 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 boop.
I think it was big from going from Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, and that was a major influence for me. But then going into the Nintendo, I think you said the word, different. This is a whole transition time where it was just different. So like the game's like, okay, I played, explored a little bit, but it didn't have a major impact. And I think I actually had a quiet time on games as far as when it come to that era. Till for me as playing more, came back up again later on with PlayStation and stuff. But yeah. Sorry,
Nintendo.
But it's there's good out of it though, so that's good to see the pros and the cons.
It does bring back a lot of fond memories of games that I
Yeah.
played.
Yeah.
Like I started thinking of games that I haven't even thought about, like Shadows of the Empire.
It's being circle. I was like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
The good thing about that system in general, you could play 4 players. They had 4-player ports. You could play 4 players.
See, there's a plus. Yep.
But like, just bringing back some of the good game memories. Controller. Now you're talking about like controllers that we don't have sitting here.
Yeah. What else?
Sega Saturn, because it came out before that. That controller I would give a 5 for certain reasons.
I'm gonna have to throw up a picture. I have to Google a picture.
The original one. If you can find the original one, because they did change the design a little bit, but the D-pad itself on the Saturn controller with a 6-button, they had triggers that weren't that great. Triggers weren't that great on it because they weren't like this. They were like almost a solid plastic piece. They weren't that great. But they had a 6-button layout on top of it.
I don't remember that.
What are they showing you on that? Yep, that's
the
it.
one?
This one right there. I believe that's it. But the D-pad on it.
Oh yeah.
The D-pad on it, you could pull, and they played those games better. They had better versions of the Capcom fighting games, the 2D fighting games. They did 2D better than PlayStation did. But PlayStation got big because of the 3D.
Wow. Interesting.
But the D-pad, you could literally pull off any Street Fighter move or anything without an issue. Dragon Punch, I could just keep doing it all day long.
This is the one I remember.
The 3D controller?
This is the one I remember.
Oh, that was awful. That one's,
that's what I played it on.
That one was awful. The D-pad is terrible, and the analog, for certain games, that'd be great, but the fighting games,
right? Well,
that's why that's like overall, like for fighting games and the 2D stuff, the D-pad and how the pad was laid out like the Capcom fighters, because they had X-Men, Children of the Atom, the Street Fighter Alpha games, and all that stuff. I could pull those moves off all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I could
What
do the
about that
super
one?
moves.
I remember that one.
That wasn't bad. The D-pads went kind of a downgrade for me. Just for the fighting games. The pad itself was probably a better pad. The way especially the triggers were better.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
it's like kind of like
if you're basing the triggers,
Yeah.
Nintendo.
that original
Sega
Saturn controller,
transitioning into
Yeah.
the white metal plastic.
yeah, because they started changing it.
64.
That's more like the Japanese design because the system looked more. They did the gray at a certain point.
Yeah.
The gray system, but yeah, the triggers on the Saturn though. You didn't have to use the triggers on that thing because they had six button face buttons on it as well. But for certain games, fighting games, I'd give it a 5. For overall, I'd probably give it a 4. Just for certain other things, just because if you had to use these, you can change the layout, but sometimes these just felt like they weren't like what they turned it into actual triggers. They were more of a bulky plastic piece that had a button in it.
Gotcha.
So
3 times.
I don't know. Did you play Saturn that much? The original.
What about the CD? Sega CD.
Sega CD used the Genesis though. That's
Okay.
that's
So
So
that-
that a little bit.
yeah. They used the Genesis controller. So Sega CD used the Genesis controller. So it's basically there's great games from that. That Sonic CD, Final Fight CD, the Terminator game. But
what kind
controller wise,
of racing games was there with that? Because that's what I ended up playing was there some kind of a racing game, like with, it wasn't like a Forenza or what do you call that? The big huge race, the big circle thing.
yeah.
It wasn't none of that.
Sega Saturn had Daytona USA, which was awesome. Daytona, the music.
It was like
Daytona
it was
USA.
like-
they had arcade games
can't
on that
remember
thing
that
on
one.
Saturn.
I almost want to think it was similar, like some kind of a buggy or they had different boards where there's like a forest you drive through or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I don't know.
Because I played a lot of different stuff.
Yeah,
It's hard to
there's
remember
just too much.
sometimes.
Too much.
All of a sudden, it starts
Really
coming out
funny.
like even what we're talking about starts bringing out
Yeah.
different games you're thinking about. Oh yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah. I some of these systems I either had little or no experience with, or like they just weren't around.
Like Virtua Racing was one of those ones that in the arcade that was the polygon graphics, like Virtua Fighter. That thing was awesome. I think they had a 32X version, which I think I had that one. It was awesome. I can't remember if Saturn ended up having one, but Daytona USA, I remember playing that thing like crazy. It was an arcade port, and then the music from it, Daytona, the theme music on the title screen was awesome because you're going around different tracks. But controller wise, I don't know. If you guys like, what do you guys think of? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to ask this question because I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
and we'll get more going on to the quality of controllers. If you had to choose a controller for particular games, if you had a choice of anything you could go back to, which controller would you pick? Like, because you like playing RPGs, which controller would you pick? Yeah, old school RPG. Yeah, old school like all the
So you'd always
Final Fantasy, Zelda games, and
you'd be just that kind of a controller man. Like if this was for every game that they ever made now, this is what you just
Straight to
fall
it.
back on.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
you could
I mean, other than a joystick for moving around, sort of thing,
You
it
don't
has
need- you
all
don't need the
buttons.
analog.
That's
I'm
it.
sorry, I'm a
For that.
PlayStation fanboy.
Because there's a lot of stuff that when you're going through, okay, you got to go. Whether your actions, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You have an action to interact, or you have an action to do something, or I like again with.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I do like Xbox, but I'm more of a PlayStation fanboy than anything. Like
Yeah, me too.
Xbox had to grow on me.
Mhm.
I mean, we can get into that.
you had a bulky controller.
That I don't have a lot of history with.
Yeah, I got my opinion on Xbox, but we'll get there eventually.
Like when you're thinking, like, what about like with you, like if you're, say your favorite, what's your favorite game genre, and then pick a controller what you would want to use for it. If you could pick any controller from any system,
I like hack and slash.
Mhm.
so what controller would you
It
want?
would have to be a PlayStation one, I think.
Because the reason I'm even asking that question because when you're talking about like the Saturn, got the Saturn controller,
Mm-hmm.
if I could still pick and use and plug that controller into any system that plays a 2D fighter with the Street Fighter or the Neo Geo type or Guilty Gear type moves, I would pick the Saturn controller just for the pad, the D-pad, to be able to do the motions and the control.
I think for a fire, if I were to for a fighting one, I think I'd have to go with this, with Super Nintendo, because
that wasn't bad for those games.
Yeah, when I played Mortal Kombat, this was my game system for Mortal Kombat of choice. And then like even when it got into Nintendo 64 with the Mortal Kombats, I kind of shied away because I couldn't use the controller on it.
Yeah. The D-pad's big one though. When you have to do half a circle, full circle, or whatever.
So that's what a Saturn one had the way it was designed. Even the D-pad, the bumps on the pads itself, like you could pull off Zangief 360 power driver all over. 360, boom, boom. You could do it like Dragon Punch. Like I could do like 100 in a row without an issue. Just because it's not like it had. It's such an easy way to do the motions. Mm-hmm. That's why I would pick it for that.
Functionality is huge.
Yes. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I don't mean to get off top, but it's like controller aspect.
Well, yeah, it's part of
huge.
The controller.
It's huge.
I mean, that's what we're digging into the controller. Our thoughts on them, anyways. So,
well, I think let alone how the controller is, I think that goes into show what games are starting to be produced.
I mean,
need to be done.
Out of everything, consoles and games, people are going to have a major opinion on the controllers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you either have Xbox or PlayStation fans.
You either like this one or you like that one. It's just what it is.
Like I still would tell you, even like an old school Xbox controller, even the bulky old original Xbox controller, I would take for first person shooters, even the RP, like Star Wars, just because of where the sticks are. If I played a fighting game on the Xbox controller, forget about it. The D-pad is terrible. I don't like using the sticks.
Right. Well, I mean, not just because it's the newest one, but like I'm a big PlayStation fan, so like with a PlayStation 5, I like that because it's wireless. I mean, just that alone, boom, get that, and then just being able to hold it. We should get in there. Does the Portal count as a?
Oh yeah, I got other controllers I control in there. I got the Xbox One controller over there. Mm-hmm. PS5, we can grab one of Matthew's. Mm-hmm. What are we on next?
PlayStation 1 would be the original PlayStation would be the next.
Okay,
one.
So
the analogs.
Yeah, so I have that. It's just in storage and attached to one of my systems somewhere.
Now we're talking.
They didn't change too much except for this. They had this analog, so they for like 2 and 3, and even 2 and 3, they kind of were the same, almost the same design.
Plus the DualShock, you got the vibration.
Yeah, they started doing the vibration on them.
You have the buttons if you need them. So now we're talking.
PlayStation was a good controller.
So be the one.
Here's the thing too: is I did when PlayStation first came out with the analog sticks, I didn't like them.
Yeah.
That's why something get used to. I liked the original one with no analog sticks. And like when they came out, I had to buy a second PlayStation because the first one burnt up in a fire.
Oh, wow. It's hard. It's in the way. It's like
so when I bought a new PlayStation, it came with analog sticks. I'm like, what the heck is this crap? What are you supposed to do with this? Mm-hmm. And like even most of the games up until the later ones, you weren't even using them. Yeah. I mean, you could use them for steering here and there, but other than that, there wasn't nothing.
Yeah, they started going to more 3D route. They started opening up with. That's what set PlayStation.
And eventually, down the road, they became a button where it was like almost mandatory. You had to use them in games.
Then you had to push down.
Yeah, like for that, I like the PlayStation, the original one that came in the box, playing games like because you can even pull off fighting game moves in that. Because I remember the first couple games I had for that when I came out was the ESPN Skating Extreme. I can't remember what it was called, but you're racing with either like skates, you're racing people. I can't remember what it's called, but probably I'll have to look that up. But Battle Arena Toshiden was a 3D fighting game that they came out with launch, which was like use swords, but they also did Street Fighter type moves. You could pull those off easy with a PlayStation controller, even with a D-pad. So that kind of ranking, see with that, depending on, like you said, at the time you didn't need the analogs. When they started adding the analogs onto it, you didn't need them. It was a pain because you didn't need them you just got in the way. But like, probably you could be like crazy getting a lower rating than certain controllers, but I probably would give it just a solid 4 all the way around.
The one without
no matter what game you're playing.
Is that which one you're talking about? The one without the analog?
Yeah, without the analog, the original one. We're going to talk about the original one.
Yep.
I would give it a 4 just because and I would say a solid 4. That means it wouldn't drop off if you're playing this kind of game or that kind of game. It would just be right there. A good quality controller, and it didn't feel like you wore it out either with the buttons, with all the triggers that they added.
I like the feel of it too. It was light. When they added the analogs, it got a little bit heavier. It got a little, so like the balance of trying to hold the controller got a little weird. So yeah, I would give it a 4 as well. Yeah, 4-star.
I agree.
Yes.
Depending on the games again with Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Let alone, I mean, I still have a hard time with other there's certain games where say like it's like Street Fighter or something where or even with Mortal Kombat, you have left and square, or back square, up down, left right, whatever. Then it's like kind of like that's the mode. We're over here. No, you got to do a whole bunch more. So it seems when we're getting into these things and there's more is being added to it that it's there for what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't complicated. It just you could use that. It was all coming together. I think it was more compact what you had to do depending on what game you're playing on. Or it could be just simple.
Yeah, the D-pad, if you were to play, like, say you brought up Mortal Kombat, because what made, like, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 popular, because it wasn't that popular, Mortal Kombat 3 wasn't that popular in the arcade, it didn't do as well as the other ones, was it when it was on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
It brought it back to life. Because you could pull off those moves when you're doing the tap, doing different, because, that's a different style of moves than the motion for the Capcom fighters. So you had to do taps. You could pull those off without an issue because the way the D-pad was. And same with, like, if you're playing a Street Fighter type game, you could pull those moves off great on those, too. Tekken was more of a tap around when they first came out, too. They basically still are, that you're moving like this to do different moves. And they could pull those moves off easily, too, like playing Tekken 3. Or all of the Tekken games all the way up, you can pull those moves out with an issue. Mm-hmm. So that's why I would give, like, no matter what you're playing, if you're playing an RPG, racing game, without the analogs, the old PlayStation controller, fighting games, shooter, that's why I say 4 all the way around. It's not going to drop depending on what game I'm playing.
Because I like, again, getting into RPGs, it's one thing when you're exploring and moving around, it's kind of like, okay, this is a camera angle, this is a character moving. Versus like basic, where you hold on the left button, you're going to the left or up or down. Because I remember, the Chrono Trigger, getting into that. It's fun, But this all done.
So transitioning into the PlayStation,
getting a lot more complicated
one
now.
of the analog.
I think that's immersion. Now you have these games where you're doing it, but then there's a lot having to do with the presentation, the angle, and moving around, exploring, and all that stuff. But then I don't want to go off topic.
The PlayStation 1 with the analog, because they started opening more 3D games. They start going big, and the games are going in that direction.
So transitioning into the analog, what was the biggest, difference in like gameplay? Would you say with it?
See,
to me, it was the vibration.
Did you like it when they added that, or no?
It just depended on the games. If like,
so
I'm trying to remember how even the sticks felt, because if they weren't, that's why, like, if you gave the choice of generation after that, and you gave me a choice between Xbox and PlayStation 2 controllers for first-person shooters, I would pick an Xbox controller just because of how the sticks feel.
Oh, okay.
And the way they're indented more, it didn't feel like my thumb was going to slip off. The PlayStation controllers, the analogs, they changed it on PlayStation 4.
Even now they had,
but the ones on the original, they were more rounded.
Yeah,
and it felt like your thumbs were slipping off, and they seemed more loose compared to an Xbox controller.
You can feel
the Xbox controllers seem more stiff.
Yeah.
And the PlayStation analogs, these ones aren't as bad, but they just seemed really.
That was me.
They moved too easily.
Sensitive.
See, when they edited it down, depending on when you needed the game, I mean, it was awesome because the innovation of, like, because Nintendo, like I said earlier, made with certain games of Mario 64, you had to use. It made sense to use an analog stick to do the 360 motions of a 3D game. See, if you do that and then you add that on, the innovation of the sticks would put it at a higher level, but because if you're looking at quality of it, I like the DualShock idea when they had a DualShock 1. See, it makes me want to drop the rating down to a 3.5 just because the sticks quality, I like the direction it was going and the innovation of it and the rumble of the controller. But the sticks itself,
brought it back.
It made it think about how your thumbs would slip off playing certain games. You had to do like this. Your thumb wouldn't slip off necessarily when you're doing. I could spin all around with Mario and go anywhere I wanted to, jump off this and do that. Those controllers, you had to do. It just your thumb was constantly. You had to constantly position your thumb, your left thumb,
And if you
to move
needed
the guy
to use
around.
it, and if you didn't do it just right, then you suffer
Yeah.
for it.
That's why I would give
Yeah.
that a 3.5 just because of
Yeah.
the sticks.
Yeah.
If it was the rumble, adding the rumble, yeah, I love the rumble. You add it up, it would jack up the rating higher. Because when they did PlayStation 3 and they didn't have the rights to it, that's a different issue. We'll get probably to that when we talk about those controllers. But yeah, 3.5 for the one with the analogs because the analogs weren't that great. And I'm comparing that to even this system, this thing that we gave a bad rating just because the overall design is awful. Because they haven't
It
switched
all
all the time.
started from here. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, it's the original analog. That's crazy.
What would you give the one with the analog PlayStation?
With the analog PlayStation, the only thing so with my experience, I didn't like the introduction to the analog. I didn't even use them unless I had to, which the games I played, you didn't have to. So like I technically didn't use the analog sticks or get into the habit of using them until the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
When you kind of sort of had to.
Yeah.
But I loved it when they put the rumble pack in them.
Oh yeah, the dual shot.
That was to me that blew my mind that they could put something in the controller that would make it move like that. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, if you got hit.
And I always bought the clear. How you know that it's my original is because I always bought the clear see-through versions of everything. So that's how you know it was something that I physically purchased when I went to the store and got it. If I could, then I would always purchase the clear version of it.
It shows you all either working to the whatever you're buying.
I mean, I've had several controllers that I've thrown away because they just got smashed and destroyed. That reminds me. I got another controller for the PS3, a wireless version. It's a secondhand rating one, but a wireless version. I'll bring that down in a minute. So yeah, like I said, I
Where did you get the PlayStation original? I'm saying PlayStation because originally it was just called PlayStation. What are you giving that controller?
the original
with the analog.
Yeah, the 4-star totally.
Okay.
Or with the analogs?
With the analogs.
Oh no, with the analogs probably 2. Because I didn't really care for the analogs.
Yeah.
Valid point though.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not needed,
I would
if
go
it's
out of my way
interrupting
not
them,
to
and
use them.
what's it for?
That's
Yeah,
how much I
the
hated
sticks
them.
itself felt like that's why I gave it a 3.5 because the design of the controller itself was still there for the other stuff, but the analog sticks, your thumb, you always had to constantly put your thumb back on the stick because it would slip. It felt like it would slip
Too
off
much, and then if you
because the grip wasn't the same.
Yeah.
they got better because I think it's just coming to mind with doing certain things would happen that you didn't want to have happen that affected your gameplay. Either it worked in your favor and you did it right, or you didn't, and it's a learning curve.
And I remember, you're reminding me of something like where it opened up where they added the analog sticks and you didn't have to use them for the games before that. You had to use the D-pad, but they gave you an option. You can use the analog over here, or you can use the D-pad, and then you try to switch and play a fighting game with the analog. Awful.
Yes.
That would like drop it down. Like the reason I keep being in fighting games up because I remember just so many times of playing stuff. No matter what it was, it was just like you cannot let your thumb just slip off and do something different when you're playing, especially against a harder character and you're trying to do moves and you can't do them precisely, and then your thumb slips off a little bit. You got to put it back where it was just to be able to do the moves. It messes things up, and then you're just like, why am I using the analog?
Yeah.
Use the D-pad. So that
it's like you had to go over that to get here or there, but that's where you're learning not to have your thumbs even there in the first place, But yeah, there's that one. Dun-dun-dun-dun. What's next?
Next generation would be Xbox, PS2, and GameCube.
Yeah. So we have. Oh yeah, see, I don't have GameCube anymore. I got rid of that because I had the only game I played was SSX.
See, it's funny with this because now they have the D-pad down closer and the joystick up.
Is that the original
the
bulky
analog
one?
Yeah. Let's dig into the Xbox controller.
Now, see, like with this,
that might have been the second generation.
yeah, it's not as bulky as the other one.
I do have.
The other one was a bigger, bulky one.
they're
When it
taller
originally came out, it was like wider.
Yeah.
But like
that's the second.
the sticks felt better. They had grips on the sticks. They had an end date, and compared to the PlayStation, they were indented. So my thumbs slipping off these, not going to happen. So when I'm playing, like if I'm playing a first-person shooter or something like that, I got the triggers up here. Perfect. Like the triggers were great on that.
Yep.
So you're playing, Ghost
Acceleration brake,
Recon
whatever.
or something like that, or with Halo, everybody's playing Halo.
Oh yeah.
for those things, I would give it a
Yes,
5. For a fighting game, that's down below. If I can give it below a 1, some people might have different opinions. Oh, you just don't like the analogs. Yeah, I don't like the analogs. The D-pad sucks for those.
And that's okay.
So and the D-pad is right here. It's
But
like
that's why.
it's
fighting games.
stiff and like for fighting games, pulling off motions,
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Even with the Tekken, it's like Soul. Yeah, I played a lot of Soul Calibur 2 with it. It was all right for those because you didn't have to do the motions as much. It was fine for the D-pad, but
It'd be nice if they had this
overall,
part here that's open it up and then you'd have all that other stuff off and it'd be back to the basic stuff.
yeah,
So you can just play
racing,
the other-
action games,
Ideas mine.
RPGs, first-person shooters like Ghost Recon or Halo. I would give it a 5 for fighting games that you had to play like Street Fighter and the Capcom stuff.
Mhm.
1, that would be like, I'm trying to think what it would be. Like overall, it would be like I had to at least give it a 4 overall, just because of the other stuff. Fighting games was very little when it came to that stuff.
I don't
So
think you need a 2.
What about your thoughts on the introduction to the memory card slots? Like, what was that like? Completely pointless to do, or did you think it was a neat little thing they did? And then the other question as well is, what is your thoughts on this whole thing?
I detached the thing. If you
Yeah.
lost that, you didn't have a controller.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess there's a downfall to that.
The memory pack thing, I get it. Like if you're going over to your friend's house and you want to take your save files over there, but the Xbox didn't really need it unless you were doing that because it had a hard drive.
Exactly. That's
Like there was a built-in, like the PlayStation 2, they still had the memory cards, which was fine. But the reason, like certain game, like I'd rather have something when they started doing the hard drive where you could build stuff in, you can even record your own music. You pop a CD in there, you put it on the hard drive.
yeah.
Copy it right
my
there. And
Xbox
it's
still
like,
has,
and then
like-
you could add it to certain games. You could add your own music to games. They
Yeah.
let you do that.
Oh yeah,
So that
was huge.
the memory thing, I get it if you're taking your stuff to a friend's house, but it's just the detached thing, it's like pointless. You lose that, you lose a controller. You can't
Yeah.
plug in without the controller.
So my thoughts, I didn't understand the whole concept of adding the memory cards because they had an 8 gig hard drive.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is dumb. Like, why would you need the memory card and that? It makes no sense. I loved the fact that they put the cord thing on there where it's split because of how many times I've tripped on the cords.
Oh, yeah.
That was my main thing.
Yeah, for that,
Because
yeah.
do you realize how many ends I've broken off or the pins I've bent because I've tripped on cords? So to me, that was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. But at the same time, with the original sized ones, I did not like how big they
Yeah,
were.
they were huge.
They were
like
too
a
big
boomerang.
for
It was
me
like
to
a
hold on
giant
to.
boomerang.
And you're like, it's like they weighed like 20 pounds. So I would have to give it a 4 just because they were trying. They were trying to
Yeah, for
stay
certain stuff.
above, or trying to stay ahead of the game with things, trying out new things. At least they tried, you
The
know.
triggers are great on those for first person.
Oh yeah,
and all that stuff,
totally.
too.
Yep. I like the way the buttons felt. I like the way the triggers felt. The Xbox, that's when I kind of sort of started using the analog sticks because you had to for like Tiger Woods. I was a big Tiger Woods fan for the game, not in reality, but
Yeah.
just the game itself.
Yeah, the games.
I played the crap out of that.
Yeah.
So I never got big into Xbox, but does that help with the placement of analogs? How they're kind of
Yeah.
versus right next to
Like
each other?
right next to each other, like the other ones, like
Crunched.
this doing like.
Yeah, some people don't
First
like the
person
thumb
shooters?
hitting.
Yeah.
So if it was like I said, if you
I was
didn't have the
looking at
slip
that,
issue,
It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
if you didn't have, they
It can
changed
go
that with the
down or
PlayStation.
over, you know. So
They
that
changed that quite a bit with the PlayStation 4 one with the analogs,
instead of just straight over, it's
with how they indented it and they had more of a rubber grip, a different kind of grip feeling on them. But yeah, I like that like a lot better because of how they designed, like playing first person shooters, yeah, it's just like
first impression.
I'm trying to think what games I played on the Xbox. It was mainly Tiger
even
Woods.
Battlefront 2, playing Star Wars
Tony
Battlefront 2 on there with that controller.
I played Tony Hawk Underground.
Yeah,
Lots of Burnout Paradise. Or Burnout.
Yeah, Burnout Takedown,
Revenge.
yeah, Takedown 3 and Revenge and
Yep,
stuff like
I have
that.
all those still. I played a lot of that.
Yeah, the
so-
racing games were great. They had Sega GT, which was like their version of Gran Turismo. Sega's thing. You could collect cars and build up. That was fun to use with that kind of controller. And it moved good too. If you had a 3D game, you could move it precisely. It wasn't like you didn't really have to worry about your thumb slipping off.
Things improving. No VR yet. Okay.
Oh, Virtual Boy. We're not gonna talk about Virtual. That's awful. That burned your retinas. All the
Yep.
red.
So
But-
see, so PlayStation 2. There was no real big difference between PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, other than the introduction to the analogs for the controllers, and maybe a little bit more durability.
It was more solid of a controller. Get used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the games that were on it, you had to use more
This is Bioshock 2.
3.
This is 3.
You had to use
It should be pro.
because you had more of the 3D games at that point.
Let it go.
You needed the sticks.
Oh yeah.
I still would give a PlayStation overall, like going on, like if you were what this controller was for the system at the time, what you needed for it, and you go into DualShock 2, it would be a 4 still, solid all the way around.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to go knocked down because of the analogs necessarily, because it kind of they felt more stiff, I think, at that point too, compared to the original PlayStation. Like, see, I would still choose, like, if you had to choose like the same game, as much as I played Star Wars, like I use Star Wars Battlefront 2 as an example for both systems, because you had to use the analog sticks. It's like almost like a first-person shooter, but it's behind the third person. I'd prefer to play it on the Xbox, as much as I played it on both crazy amount of times, just because of the sticks. Because you had to use the sticks, the analog sticks. But overall, the controller's solid still. It's still an upgrade over the original DualShock, because when they introduced the analog sticks, they had a generation to kind of work on it a little bit more, even though it wasn't. It was still a step above, so it's like a 4 overall for everything.
Yeah, the center pad. This is getting in later, but
That's
like with Astrobot, my son loves that.
PlayStation 2 controller?
That's PlayStation
3.
No, I'm saying which one are we on?
PlayStation 2.
Didn't mean to jump.
Okay, PlayStation 2, yeah. Yeah, there wasn't really, I don't have as much of an opinion for PlayStation 2. Probably the same as, I guess, 4-star, I guess, just because they didn't go anywhere with it, really. They didn't, I guess they didn't need to.
They made it more solid than it was before.
That's about it. Made it more durable. Because I've stepped on it before and then didn't break them.
Yeah, the buttons didn't seem like they wear out. The triggers weren't as durable
as the
Xbox controllers, because they weren't really like triggers are just like a solid button on the top. They didn't turn into the triggers until later on.
I have a different PlayStation 2 controller that I used eventually, because I played a lot of God of War on the PlayStation 2. A lot of God of War, a lot of Twisted Metal Black. There wasn't a whole lot of games I played, but there's the burnout games, stuff like that. So I didn't really beat up the controllers a lot, but there's a controller for PlayStation 2. Then also I have wireless ones too, but those for some reason they break down, like the plastic melts on them. Did you notice that?
Oh, which ones?
They're wireless. So they're like Mad Cats.
Oh yeah, the Mad Cats controllers.
They fit my hand perfect. They had these long sides. I have one upstairs. I'll just show you. But it came with a little eyeball that you plugged into the port, and then it was wireless, which is amazing because having a wireless controller for a PS2 is awesome. So there's a couple different styles that I actually used. I should have brought them down just for an example, because they're completely different setups. I mean, I still can.
Yeah, you kind of forget everything was wired still at that point, unless you had an aftermarket thing. What would you give a PlayStation 2 controller, DualShock 2?
Four. Clear cut. It's I didn't have any problems with any of the games. And I guess I was just comfortable with it. I wouldn't say hey, wow, or bad in any way. It's just even keel. When I got into the whole DualShock, that I liked. I mean, but the way that the L and R, it was very easy to do. It was just getting used to the actual motions of depending on the game that was being played. For me,
The other one.
PlayStation.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about like other controllers at that stage, and he's going to check out the PlayStation 2 controller, but I'm just thinking of like see certain things like you think of generation and games you played, or even similar games, what what controller you would prefer, or even playing the same game. Now, if I chose fighting games, so you're going to bring up fighting games again. It's like a boomerang. It's shaped like a boomerang, which is funny. PlayStation, playing the Tekken games on there and Street Fighter type games. You can pull stuff over the D-pad without an issue on the PlayStation 2 controller. Xbox, like I said, choice-wise, I'd rather play certain games with an Xbox controller than a PlayStation 2 controller. And it goes both ways. So it's like, just depends. But overall, solid for everything, for anything you want to play.
Sure. I mean,
it's not the same degree of change with an Xbox controller, because the Xbox is 5 solid for almost everything except for fighting games is a 1. PlayStation is a solid 4 all around.
Well, it's neat when you get into a lot of things. At the same time, to me, there's beauty and simplicity. If it's an arcade game, whether it's Gauntlet or playing something else or action, it's just they had it right. I never had a complaint. You did it. It was simple. You had 3 buttons. That was that. Bing, bing, boom.
That your Mad Catz.
So this is it came with batteries, on and off power switch. You can turn the tilt. This is a tilt steering as well, so you can tilt steer it.
Oh.
You turn that on or off. It's called. I don't know what it's called, but it says tilt sense on it. Anyways, this thing, it felt great in the hands. After I got used to it, it felt amazing. I did many a God of War with this thing. Now the thing that was weird was 10 years down the road, because this had a grip thing on it. That grip melted.
Oh.
Overheated
at a certain point, or just overuse?
It just, plastic breaks, it starts to break down after like 10 years. I mean, you see the coloring in the Nintendo game system, Super Nintendos.
Yeah.
How they turn yellow. Yeah. The plastic breaks down. So the rubber grip that they had this coated in, it's not as sticky, because I took some rubbing alcohol one day and just tried getting rid of it. And I mean, this is the best I could get. So it's not sticky anymore. With this thing, I could go like this and then let go, and it would stick to my hand, because the grip melted on it. I don't know. I don't even know if it still works anymore or not. But yeah, I loved all these buttons. Everything had a great feel to it. It just fit perfect in my hand. I loved it. I hated having to transition from this into the next controller for the next system, because I learned I loved it. And my dad gave me these for Christmas. He gave me 2 of them, and you could play 2-player like that, wireless. And it was the greatest thing because up until then they didn't have wireless controllers.
Yeah, they didn't have wireless controllers yet.
This was the first introduction to wireless controllers I ever seen. I do
have Bluetooth yet.
And then Xbox did the same. I have some wireless controllers for the original Xbox 2 upstairs as well. They look just like that one right there, but they're wireless. They got the ports in the front. You got to put AA batteries in them. So I mean, you could see even then, towards the later years of the console years, PlayStation and Xbox, before the 360 and the PS3, they're already starting to try to transition into the wireless controller. I mean, I don't think this is a PlayStation one. This is just a aftermarket Mad Catz maybe, but you can tell they're pushing for it anyways. The technology, they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, usually back then they had to have some kind of sensor where you plug into the power, the controller port, and then you had to have the batteries, and then you had to be lined up to be able to use the thing. Otherwise, if you were too far out, it's not like a Bluetooth controller where I could be in the other room and the other side of the house and be messing with the game.
Yeah.
Messing with the controller. Hey! And they're like,
yeah.
What are you doing? Why is the menu jumping all over the place? It's because I'm in the other room upstairs messing around with it. Why does the game keep pausing and unpausing?
So I would give this a 5-star just because of everything worked out great with it back then. But they've come a long way. They've come a long way.
So now, I know you don't have one. GameCube. We got to talk about the GameCube controller.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, the design was a little weird on it.
Yep.
With the button, the buttons itself was an upgrade of this.
Yeah.
It didn't have the weird whatever.
I couldn't really get it to fit in my hand right.
But yeah, it seemed a little bit. The button, the way they designed the buttons, I remember it's like one was like shaped like this and one was shaped like that.
Yeah, 2 different sizes.
But overall, I would give it a 4, just because it did seem a little bit more flimsy comparison-wise after a certain point. Not that they broke down necessarily, but it just seemed really light, too light compared to other, especially if you're going from an Xbox and PlayStation to that, or DualShock 2. But I remember the stick on it was even good enough trying to remember where it was positioned. The stick on that, the way they designed the stick, the analog stick on it, was good enough to play Street Fighter type games. I didn't need to use the weird D-pad on it. The D-pad on it wasn't as good for those games. The funny thing is how the stick was and where it was positioned. I could play Capcom versus SNK2 EO was what it was, their version of it. Loved that version of the game, the GameCube game. You play that stuff and pull moves off like no big deal. And the racing games and like F-Zero that they had on that and different things, or the Rogue Squadron games that they had, the Star Wars games you could pull. But I would give probably the GameCube controller a 4. So I had at least a little bit of experience with the GameCube for a little while. And they let you play 4 players the way the system was too. They had a 4-player port.
Yeah, there's a reason why I don't have it anymore, just because I only had 4 games, I think, for it. So like the games that I wanted to play, they weren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, hence the reason why I never. We got the Wii, we got the Switch, we got that kind of thing, but that's mainly for the kids and the family. I didn't really kind of get into that stuff. I tried, but they just didn't have my game that I wanted to play, It just wasn't.
They were the first ones that had Resident Evil 4.
Okay.
The GameCube was like the one, like it was exclusive to that system, so that was the mature, like that game is like would be considered one of the best ones out of those kind of games, and it was on GameCube first. Like they did have like with their stuff, Nintendo had their stuff that they were always good at. But usually, it's, which I don't mind it being family friendly. But if you want to go into stuff like you're not going to get God of War, or God of War 2, which is considered a better game than the first one. A lot of people consider on GameCube. This is Nintendo doesn't like. That's why even them getting exclusive for a year or two of Resident Evil 4 being on that system, and that was an awesome game even for the GameCube. That was an awesome game on that system. But yeah, controller wise, I don't know if you played GameCube.
I'll give it a 4-star too, just because it is what it is.
Yeah, for what you can play on it.
I just wasn't a big fan.
You did, the games. That's why you always tell me Nintendo or not. It's at least the newer stuff.
Yeah, because the newer stuff. The old retro stuff, I loved, absolutely love it, everything. But then once it got to GameCube, I think, and I was like, there really wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah, a lot of people get that attitude. Oh, Nintendo's cute.
That's what exactly.
Compared to other stuff, like even the systems is like, wait a minute, it's like
they kind of kept it for the kids or for family oriented.
Mm-hmm.
They did say some awesome, like I said, they had some awesome exclusives for that system, like the Star Wars, Rogue Squadron games, all the Nintendo stuff that they always make. Resident Evil 4 for a little bit, and then PlayStation 2 finally got it. But yeah, 4. That's a 4 just because of what it was and what it could do. Did seem a little bit more light and flimsy compared to the other ones, just because of how light it was. I don't think it had rumble or anything in it. I don't remember. It's been a while.
The GameCube one?
Yeah,
I don't think it did.
I don't remember that. So
I don't think they reintroduced that. It could be wrong. If we were wrong, guys, make sure you leave a comment.
It probably did at a certain point, but
I think they kind of didn't do that until the Wii. The Wii's when they put the rumbling back in. Maybe I don't know. I could be wrong. I can't remember. It's been too long. See what else we got.
The next generation would be
Sega.
360 would be the next thing.
What about Dreamcast?
Oh, Dreamcast. Oh, yeah. Dreamcast controller had a lot of innovations in it. The system in general.
It was crazy.
Had a lot of it because it came out before Xbox, PlayStation 2, GameCube, and it got killed just because PlayStation 2, basically. The controller had the memory pack in it and everything else. It had you could do online. It was the first system to actually do online. That controller, as bulky as it was, the sticks were good. The controller itself, I would give it like a 4.5 just because it played everything. You could play the cat, like I'm always going to go back to the Capcom fighters just because of be able to do certain things on the controller. I could pull those moves off without an issue on the Dreamcast controller, the original one, even though it was like a big thing, but it had the little screen on it where you can see whatever. And then I would give that like a 4.5, the original Dreamcast. I almost forgot about Dreamcast. It's that generation.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely I absolutely loved the Dreamcast. I still got it, but I don't have, like I said when I was talking to you guys earlier, I don't have the stuff where I need to buy new controllers, I need to buy new wires, everything, the whole 9 yards. I think I still got some of the games. I got like Kiss Pinball and some random weird things in there. I think like a shooter game or I don't know, the car chasing game, maybe something to do with the taxi. I can't remember, but they're on the shelf. I absolutely loved the system. I loved the controller, even though it was big and bulky. For some reason, it fit in my hand.
Yeah, it felt.
I don't know how or why, but that always it had the perfect feel. The triggers, the buttons, everything was right where I wanted it, and I could use it really good for like Sonic. I was playing a lot of Sonic. Was it Sonic Spinball or something like that?
Yeah, they had that kind of thing.
Some kind of a
Sonic Adventure.
Yeah. That's
like
the
a
one.
3D Sonic game.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. And then you could take your little pull the little memory card thing out and play it like a game.
Yeah.
And keep your character alive in there, like a gigapet or whatever you call them things.
Yeah.
Did
Cool.
you? Or those, my sisters had them.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
little keychain things. You keep your pet alive.
They had great sports games on that thing. 2K Sports started there. That was a Sega thing back in the day.
Oops. Name of that remote. I press play. I think I forgot to press play on that. Oh,
Where's the button? Oh, it's the OK button.
there you go.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'd definitely give it a 5-star. I loved it.
I don't know. You probably didn't have a lot. Do you have a lot of experience with Sega Dreamcast? I know you said when you PlayStation.
No,
at that
pretty much
point.
after a little bit after the Nintendo 64, I had a incubation period, I guess, until PlayStation. I didn't get into the
I think we all had some kind of a break at some point.
Yeah, I had that break
Mine
for
was
a little bit.
yeah, because I like we hadn't. Well, I got my first Nintendo when I was like 10 or 11, but then I didn't actually get to play or have anything to do with systems until I was like 17.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got into them. That's when I started buying my own consoles, buying my own games. But, all right, so what's the next one you were talking about? Oh, 360.
360 would be the next one.
Yeah, 360. You don't.
I don't have necessarily. Is that the actual 360 controller? Right?
Yes.
A 360 controller.
Yeah.
See, the triggers are great. It's not worn out. Sticks are great. D-pad is better
Just
than
in the
the
center.
That's the battery pack.
Just battery
The
pack?
D-pad is better than the
Okay.
original Xbox. It moved better.
Triggers look like triggers.
Just overall in
Curves.
general, and I won't even bring up the fighting game aspect because the sticks are better for that than the original one was. But overall, because you're playing stuff like Gears of War and all that kind of stuff on there, and
Yeah,
Halo and all that stuff, but like that's a 4.5. Just and it was wireless at that point too. You had to get batteries at different time. I remember I got
originally
the rechargeable batteries. I'd buy the rechargeable
Yep.
batteries and I'd put in there because I get tired of buying batteries.
Yep.
But I get the rechargeable ones. But yeah, 4.5 just people were like, you're rated lower than other ones for what it was at the time. And like I said, there'd be certain things that would knock it down a little bit, but like overall, it's like not going to drop that much. Just because anything you play, you didn't have to worry about a cord anymore.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like you had to line it up with a system to play it either. It just like even playing stuff like I remember we would play Fight Night Round 3 when it came out, or Round 2 or whatever, which one came out when the system came out. I remember we played that game nonstop. Me and a few friends, they'd have me bring over the 360 just to play the boxing game. And I was like, slow motion, guy getting knocked out and playing Gears of War and stuff. But yeah, it would be.
Yeah, so with me, originally when I first started playing this, I did not like the thumbstick up here. I hated it. So I thought, originally I would have thought this was junk, trash. I did not like it. It was a huge learning curve for me.
Yeah.
Because I was used to PlayStation. I'm a PlayStation guy, you know what I'm saying? So the sticks were here. I liked the sticks being here. So when I started playing this, I actually bought a controller, a 360 controller, an aftermarket one where the sticks were both down here.
Like a PlayStation, yeah.
Like a PlayStation, because I couldn't, every time I'd play Black Ops, when I'd try to turn, because of the different angle, it would end up knifing somebody. It'd screw me up every single time. Because I would try to turn to shoot, and when I would do that, it would knife. Because of the angle of the stick, and it wasn't how it would be for the PlayStation.
Mm.
So it messed with my head, but now I love it. Because I'm used to this stick. It took a long time, though, for me to get used to this, because I kind of had to force myself to. And then once I did, I can just jump from controller to controller and be just fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd give it 4.5, 5 stars, just because of like even now the durability on it, and then having the rechargeable battery pack, wireless.
Able to play PC games,
This
PC
thing
gamers
is-
play.
Yeah,
Xbox
exactly. Yeah,
controllers.
yeah. Marcus, he could hook up to his Chrome, we call it Chromebook thing with one of these things and play. He could play whatever games like Black Ops 6 on the laptop with his Xbox account, streaming it. He could do stuff like that. And then also the introduction of the headset.
Yeah, with the online.
Was
plug
it
in.
on those ones? I can't remember if they were. I think they were.
Yeah, I
think
think they.
yeah,
had-
it was. But
It was up. It was up. The headset was up. I think one of these ports is for the headset up here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's so. Yeah, so going down this was nice. Was a nice change up. I did a lot of Gears, except for I didn't get into Gears until Gears 3 came out, and then because that was so good, I had to go back to play Gears 1 and 2, and I got into them, and then eventually I just kept getting into all the new Gears coming out. But yeah, I'd give that 4.5, 5 stars. Now I would.
Fresh eyes, since I never really played the Xbox, I think it's cool to have the analog and the D-pad right then and there. You know, because on a lot of them you have it over in reverse on the other side. So if you need this over here, you can. If not, you're doing what you need to do, either or. Nice. Like the colors.
Oh, of course they come out with tons of other colors. There's a black one. There's
Yeah.
camel. There's all kinds of.
Did it start with them with the different body and stuff like that? Being able to change? Yeah,
The
It was
original-
just white. They were white.
Yeah,
It's a straight
the originals
factory.
were white.
360 was white.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, so what about the PS3?
There's actually two for that.
Mm-mm.
Two
Because
controllers.
they didn't have when the system came out. They did not have the DualShock technology
I gotta remember this.
because it was somebody else's technology and they were having issues at the time for the patent. So it was just the 6-axis controller, which they had to,
For the
certain
PlayStation
games.
3?
Yeah, PlayStation 3, where you had certain games you had to do certain motions with it,
Mental.
or like I remember that Lair, the dragon flying game. That game would have been much better, and they did add an update later where you can use the sticks and control the dragon and move it around.
Huh.
And the game made the game because a lot of people were like, "Oh, it looks great," and the game, the story and everything seemed great, but you had to use the 6-axis controller, the motion of it, and they didn't have the rumble on it for a while. It wasn't until they released, and the DualShock 3 came with the Metal Gear Solid 4 bundle with Metal Gear Solid 4 and the Metal Gear Solid 4 system. They had DualShock 3. Because even in the game, I remember playing that game and playing it through, and I can't remember the boss's name. Other people remember the name because he showed up in other games. He would tell you because he'd I'm gonna move your controller. And if you didn't have the DualShock in the controller, because he'd tell you to put the controller on the floor, I'll move it for you. He would get all thrown off if you were using the 6-axis because it wasn't the DualShock. But if you put the controller on the thing, he would make the game would make your all of a sudden the character would make your DualShock move. He's like, I'm moving your controller or whatever he used to do. But yeah, the 6-axis, it felt too light. There was no rumble to it, and certain things you had to the bowling game that they had for it. That's great. You can hold it like a bowling ball and go. If you didn't let go of the controller and go flying towards the TV screen, you're fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I remember that.
without the rumble and just the 6-axis, it would be because it did get better from PlayStation 2 at a certain point. It did seem lighter without the DualShock in it. So just the original one, PlayStation 3 with the 6-axis. I don't like certain aspects. I give it a 4, but then there's certain things because they tried to focus too much on the 6-axis with certain games like Lair, which made the game awful. You couldn't use the D-pad or the analogs to play the game. You had to. I'm flying the dragon like this, like the Wii. It's not exactly like the Wii. Sorry, it ain't like the Wii. There's certain aspects of it would drop it down to a 2. But overall, it would be a 4. But there's certain games, like, a level. Now, if you went to DualShock 3, that got a lot better.
Okay.
Because you had the rumble and everything, and they still had the 6-axis, but they didn't focus as much on the 6-axis at that point. DualShock 3.
Because the whole.
DualShock 3, I would just give a solid 4 all around. I wouldn't drop any other bit. Because you didn't, even though there's some games that still had the 6-axis, but they didn't focus on it as much.
Is that 3?
Yeah,
This one?
that one.
Is that 3?
Yeah, it's DualShock 3.
DualShock 3. Okay.
Yeah, it's even harder to find the ones unless you have the original ones because they totally got rid of the ones without the DualShock.
I mean, we've got 10 of those, but they're all smashed to pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all
They're solid
kids,
controller
so
overall.
it happens.
See, if
I'm
you don't-
going to give it a 5-star just because I'm a PlayStation fanboy, but I just liked everything about it. Once we got into PS3, I liked the wireless, Bluetooth connection, how light they were. The battery life when they first came out was actually pretty decent.
Yeah, you didn't have to buy batteries.
For like 5 or 6 hours, yeah, you charged up and they would last, well, maybe even longer, maybe even 8 hours.
Yeah, you plug
of
it into the
gameplay.
system and
then you can plug
make
it
it wired
in,
or unwired.
plug it in and charge it and play at the same time. So it had a lot of really cool things added to it. So there's a bigger jump from PS2 to PS3 than there was from PS1 to PS2, which is nice. And then the rumble pack in there. Let's see what else. And the tilt steering thing, that was kind of interesting because they did that for Kung Fu. Remember Kung Fu?
Pow?
What's that game? You can only use the tilted.
Yeah.
Kung Fu Ragdolls.
Yeah, the ragdoll. Ragdoll Kung Fu.
So you can only use a tilt. You can get it on the PS5, but you can't do nothing with it because it's not the same as the PS3.
Yeah,
the controller.
I remember having the original PS3. So if you don't have any experience with it, only the 6-axis without the DualShock, your experience will be like. That's why I said that. With that, it's like a 4 that could drop down to a 2. Probably DualShock 3, I probably would give it a 4.5 or a little bit higher just overall. But like you're saying, the controller itself is solid as all can be.
Yeah.
So the question is, Microsoft have anything to do with Nintendo?
They're doing stuff with them here.
They're kind of throwing games around here.
Okay, I was just wondering because with the whole Xbox with the X, Y, and B's, it seems the Super Nintendo controller, the buttons.
Oh, that's interesting.
Other than the symbols on the PlayStation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think about the DualShock 3? Because you probably, I don't know, did you have any experience without the DualShock, or did you like the 6-axis? It was only for a little while. It's because they had the patent issue with DualShock. They didn't have it for a while.
I think I remember, now that you say it,
there was a legal issue
hearing about something.
Somebody was challenging who owned the. You have to pay me. That's why they didn't have DualShock 3.
I guess I didn't know much about it, so I didn't think of anything different because I didn't know. But
he
when they
came
had
late
it,
to the game.
Yeah.
Like the story I got is I introduced him to the PS3.
Okay.
Because you were still single at the time. You were just visiting. I ran into you. You came over.
More so. I mean, I know most people have PlayStation
We were playing
stuff
pinball.
like that.
In Little Big Planet.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
On the PS3. That was like the coolest thing.
Yeah,
the PS3. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then it took off after that from the
I
PlayStation
had
3,
the backwards
PlayStation
compatible
4,
one.
PlayStation 4 Pro.
Matter of fact, I just found
PlayStation 5 now.
It's just my backwards compatible one. I found it in the closet.
In Portal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my system was. The Metal Gear Solid 4 was the last. They brought backwards compatible with that. That was more based on emulation. Where you could put the disc in there, but it had you had to download a pack.
Yeah, yep.
It wasn't like the original ones because it brought the cost of the system down. Is what they said.
Yep.
Yeah, with you bringing that up, that's what got me back into PlayStation.
Okay.
I remember because I really enjoyed Chrono Trigger, and then I got the backward for Chrono Cross. So I was like, oh wow! So that brought me back.
Did I go with you to get your PS3 too? Or no? Or did you get it?
Maybe
because I'd been with you when you got your
GameStop or wherever.
I was with you for PS4 and PS5, wasn't I?
Mm-hmm.
With the PS3, you got different. Yeah. Oh no, Liz got that for you.
It is funny that you're bringing up that whole transition of that too, because I had a 360 at the time, but did the Red Ring of Death, and they were replacing them for free.
Oh really?
And I had to send they were doing a replace because they knew everybody was getting Red Ring of Death.
Gotcha.
And I just spent a ton of money to get a bigger hard drive added to it and downloaded my things and then it died. Mm-hmm. All the stuff on it, and maybe because I had Mass Effect on it, had the Gears games on that. But PlayStation 3, Metal Gear Solid 4 was coming out, which was only on the system, and they had the backwards compatible. So I got that, and DualShock 3 came out with that system. They introduced DualShock 3 finally. Mm-hmm. But I remember everything kind of transitioned from me playing 360 as much as I did, and I ended up getting the system replaced. But it drove me nuts because I spent all that money to upgrade everything, and it just Red Ring of Death. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sold more systems at a certain point. PlayStation 3 ended up catching up. any Xbox fans, boy, they did, and they oversold them at a certain point. The life, because Sony left them around a lot longer. But yeah, the whole PlayStation 3, I ended up transitioning more at that point from Xbox 360 to PlayStation 3 because I got rid of my 360 at a certain point. I never got the smaller one that had the red and death problem. Did have on the bulky PlayStation 3 though, my Metal Gear Solid 1. It did have the yellow block of death, which PlayStation ended up having, which I had to get replaced. But yeah.
Your fat style.
Yeah, the fat style, yeah, like it overheated at a certain point. But yeah, I transitioned from 360 because I don't care. Like I might play certain systems. I'm going to go a little off subject. Might play certain systems more than others depending on the games at certain times. But I don't care what system it's on. If it's Sony or nowadays it's Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo because they all have good games. If you can only play it on that system, good. I don't care. If it's a good game, I'm going to have fun. I don't care what system it's on.
Exactly.
Oh, it's got to be Sony only or Microsoft. No. It's like, I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, it's like there's certain, like Sega, I would always prefer over Nintendo, but I had a Super Nintendo too, and I played that ridiculously amount as much as the Genesis. So it don't matter to me as long as there's games on there that I enjoy and have fun with. I don't care what system it's on.
That's what it's all about. I mean, if pinball was Williams or it's a Tiger game,
or Stern,
so it's fun.
Stein or whatever, who cares if it's whatever. If it's like, it's just that whole. That's why I like even what it's going off subject a little bit. What Microsoft's doing now with their Game Pass and kind of trying to break down it's hurting their system sales, but trying to break down the wall of like system competition. Like, oh, it's got to be on this or that. Yeah, it's those exclusives not being on their systems killing system sales, but them doing the Game Pass where they're going to open up and even put stuff on PlayStation, which, oh, God forbid, Halo's on PlayStation. Bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. I'll be
more
playing
it just bring more people to play the games. Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah, and that's or Gears of War being on there. Who cares?
I'll be playing it.
What can you bring to the table to make gamers want to use your system?
Yeah.
That should be the competition.
That was always what sold systems. Now they're kind of getting away from that to a degree. Sony still does that. Nintendo still always has their exclusives that people are loyal to a degree. Because even if they're more family friendly, but there's games on there that people like. If you looked at from even the Switch, I'm going way off with the controller. The controller's making me think about it more, but the different controllers but Switch, they have the Mario Kart with all the stuff, and then Super Smash Brothers with all the stuff. People love playing those games.
Oh yeah, that was well.
So and they're competitive as all can be. So it doesn't matter. I don't care what. It's like, I might prefer a certain controller. Like what you're saying, you got one that was like a PlayStation controller for the Xbox.
Yeah,
I saw that back and forth depending on what system I had. Like if I wanted, I got stuff that was more like a PlayStation controller for my Xbox One before, like the one I had a couple of times ago, just to be able to play fighting games more. But what did you rate the DualShock 3? I forgot to ask you that. What did you rate a DualShock 3?
Oh man, so this is getting more than I'm comfortable with and used to. So, 4 seems to be the overall number. No, I have no complaints or nothing spectacular to say about it, other than some of the features that it had. Again, with the whole soundbite with the DualShock 3 getting in there. I know which system is this one for? Is this for 3?
That's 4.
That's 4? Oh. Well, getting into 4, I thought that was neat with the pad.
Yeah.
Once we're getting there, are we on that system yet or not?
No. 3.
Rewind a little bit. So, okay, so this is, hit rewind a little bit. It's other than what they had on that. I'm trying to think. Remember what the 1, 2, 3, 4 was? Is that battery life?
Player. That was player.
Players, how many people on it? Okay, specifying that. Other than just the feeling on it, that just immersed a little bit more, but nothing other than the ordinary. Going on to what comes later. That I'll get into saying more of a solid 5 when it gets in this, and I'm not just saying that because I favor PlayStation, but again, being in the stories and different things getting immersed in, there's a lot of stuff that puts that in there, whether it's sound or vibration or the speakers, the wireless, the Blu-ray. It's this not Blu-ray, Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Sorry. But always thought these knobs though. They still get me, at least with later on it seems.
Yeah, they made them better. They still have the slip issue here and there.
Yeah, I'm looking around just for around the sides to see with the whole ball action in there. versus but yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, some of that came off there, but
Yeah, that thing's dead.
Yeah.
It's seen better days.
It just seems for but it's still just what it is what it
all
is
they
now,
need to
but
do is
basic.
buy a battery and put a new one in.
Yeah.
And it'll be working.
In a way, looking back at it, it's kind of nice because of everything that it has now, except for some stuff that they've done. It's just basically nuts and bolts of what is it now. So I always like things that are more simple. I'll still give it a 4 though because it's going to get better.
There is a controller of that generation that we still got to talk about.
The Wii.
The Wii controller.
It's okay.
Oh,
The Wii,
no.
Wii U.
The Wii controller.
Should we hit both?
The
at the
Wii
same
U's
time?
next generation. Wii U's after that. So
Okay, so would that be
the Wii.
The Wii U would be the PlayStation 4 generation?
No, oh, it's
Is it the one with the stick and it has a
generation.
controller goes into it?
Oh yeah. So the Wii would still be in the PS.
The Wii would be the which everybody's like, oh, the system power is downgrade. But see that if you went because of what they did with the motion and the games you could do with the motion, it was like with PlayStation trying to copy with the 6-axis a little bit. Where they gave him the Nintendo though, that's why they're glad they had a strap because I remember seeing people smashing their TVs trying to play Wii Sports or doing but overall, like if you playing games like that, like that's great. It's a 4 or more like motion.
Yeah, I mean
what it added to like innovation when it came to motion and doing stuff like that and different things, but trying to play like Resident Evil 4 and they had motion stuff. Like I remember you try to point like that was kind of
Well, I mean, because I got like Wolverine, got Mad, those things are hard. But as far as bowling, I like the bowling. Got Diamond on it.
Yeah, Wii Sports, the Wii Sports Resort,
it was more social, but that was just the system. But the controller, when it was anything that was more complicated, then it got more difficult.
I didn't like that you had to add like the
knuckle,
the knuckle thing to it to play certain games, and you had to hold like this and then do this.
Yeah.
If it was like that, you turn it around, you played old school games. It was great for old school games because they had a lot of open up with old school games. The D-pad was good on it because it made it like basically like this.
I should have brought that over because I got that.
But the Wii, and when they did the shock in it, like they made the rumble, it made it a lot better, and they made the control actually better too. Mm-hmm. The motion got a lot better.
Yes,
that would give it a 4 just because of the innovation of it for the motion and stuff. Mm-hmm. If you want to do certain things where you had to add on, I mean Mario Kart's great on it, but you didn't only needed the D-pad and a few buttons.
Very creative,
but like as that goes. Other stuff, if you had to play games that were getting into, you had to use the analog stick and have that.
That's what attachment.
Like 2.5 or 3, just because it's just like they played well, but it was still like you're 2 separate things. You're holding this thing and this thing.
Yeah, the
in one hand, it's like you're.
It felt like a prototype controller.
Yeah. What was your experience with a Wii controller?
I'm gonna have to poo on it. I can't. That's where Nintendo lost me. Was when the Wii came out.
Yeah.
I tried. I really did. We bought a Wii back when it first came out. You know how it was like you couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
We went down to visit Tiffany's dad in Pennsylvania, and we just went to like a Kmart or the Toys R Us or something like that, and they actually had one, so we grabbed it.
That's where it seemed to start with this whole social thing too, and having all the people.
All the old people, all elderly people started playing video games.
Or the
new,
Wii
yeah.
And get them off the couch.
And so we got this thing, opened it up, and immediately with this dealing with setting it up and dealing with all these
the bees, too, but
all that crap, I was like, nah. And then I tried using the controllers, and I couldn't figure this stupid. I still can't do it to this day. I can't figure them out. So I'm going to give it a 0 star.
Yeah, that's why certain aspects of it I would give like the innovation, what they did with the motion.
I mean, the concepts.
Like, there's a reason that's the most sold system.
There's some pretty cool concepts, but for me, I cannot use that controller. So I'm just gonna.
We're talking about controllers. So there's certain aspects of it I would give it 4. Other aspects because of the innovation, other stuff would be like 2 or lower.
Bowling, yes. Wolverine. Other games, no.
Yeah,
it's very hard. But at the same time, I'd have to say, other than those particular games I enjoyed, that's the least system I played. Yeah. So I don't have a lot of time getting used to it and doing other things. It was just frustrating, so I didn't do it.
Should we do the Wii U at the same time or no?
Wii U is like after the fact.
Okay, so
that's like they tried to step up with they did some things that led into Switch, which was innovative, but the system itself was an issue.
Yeah, there's a reason why I don't have a Wii and I don't have a Wii U anymore.
Well, it's
I
your
lost
game.
interest.
It's your game
Yeah,
preference.
exactly.
Too.
I lost interest. I bought them. I gave them a shot. The Wii U I held on to a little bit longer. But then I ended up just selling it because I just didn't play it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting into Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and Wii U, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's the
This
Xbox. That's that One X, but it's the
that's
same.
the One X?
They're all the same.
It's the same thing
It's
still.
the same thing. They didn't do.
Yeah, it looks
anything
basically the
different.
same thing.
You can
Direct to the battery.
yeah
a little bit
you
better.
can change from that to the other one and back and forth and still play the same games.
Yeah, because it seems almost like
So
the
what
one
these
I
two?
had.
One looks like a bit. What are these things for?
The charging
for the
port.
charge. All
Yeah,
three.
they change things. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, because
Series
how you
X,
put it in the charger.
but it's
Mhm.
almost like the same as an Xbox One controller. So
Yeah, they are like.
I would
the
still give it
Xbox
a
One and the Xbox One X both. They're
the
the same exact everything.
Xbox One. I would give it just a solid 4 overall. To me, even with first person shooter, playing something like Fallout 4, where it's just basically like that first person, and then it's like analog sticks are on D-pad. If you're going to play certain things, I'm not playing Mortal Kombat on this. I don't want to play Capcom Fighters on this. I might play Mortal Kombat might not be bad because it's this back, tapping the directions or whatever. But if I had to use this, the D-pad is better than the original one. It has a better emotion on it. This is a Series X though, right? But yeah, it's basically.
Oh no, that's actually the Xbox One.
Is it Xbox
Yeah,
One?
because I have the One X upstairs.
Yeah,
My
Xbox
controller
One.
for
Yeah, that's what I
that
was
is
wondering.
upstairs.
Looking at it was Xbox
But-
One.
Those look
But they're the same. Like
Yeah, they're basically
for some reason
they didn't change.
they didn't
much.
change it. Like
So
it's more like a Sega Genesis type.
Yeah, the sticks are a little bit looser compared to earlier generations. Like that's why I mark it down a little bit more. That's why I only give it a 4. The trigger is still like, I'm going to shoot this guy.
Mhm.
Call of Duty. This thing in Call of Duty all the time. Fallout. Playing those kind of games. Halo. Gears. It was backwards compatible too. That's part of the reason I like this system. Backwards compatible, but 4 for an Xbox One.
yeah,
That's a solid 4. That's not going to wiggle too much with any direction.
yeah.
If one of these controllers were to fall on the ground, what would withstand the best so far that we've talked about?
If it was on a carpeted ground like that one, it'd be okay. If it was on something hard like this, it'd probably be okay, but it'd probably crack it open just a hair.
There's a couple spots that would crack it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I like
Well, it goes in line.
Wait.
Like, oh, gotta get another controller.
the weight feels nice. It fits nice in the hand.
The rumble's good.
Yeah, the rump. Yeah,
We'll never have to think about these earlier generation ones.
everything
The cord
about it is an upgrade from the 360.
more complicated. It's
The
like
battery life, the way the battery goes in and stays in and charge it, the way you charge it, like everything is completely different. The way you put the headset in, everything is completely different than the 360. It feels like everything feels nice. The grips are nice. The buttons feel nice. And then we
Sounds
also
real
forgot to
flat.
talk about them utilizing the symbols
Yeah.
in the last generations. They used it as an actual button, remember?
What's
Yeah.
that?
Before that, they didn't.
Yeah.
What's that one that you showed up before? This one right here. That seems more similar to this, where the top piece is all flat up there, and then you hold on to it, except for the analog being off the angle like the normal. This comparison.
Yeah, which one are you comparing it to?
This one.
Oh, okay.
See how the
Oh,
front is
yeah,
like
yeah,
flat,
it's flat,
and then it goes
yeah.
off where
Oh, I wonder.
the layout is the
probably-
same, but
probably
then it's
pulled
bulkier up
this
top and.
something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I brought it up because you said you like the feel of this.
Yeah. That's
Turning
probably why,
it.
because it feels like it. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's just right. Yeah, I'd probably give it a 4.5, 5 stars. Battery life, actually, like when you get the batteries and you charge it correctly, the battery life on these things are amazing. Like,
Yeah.
like they stay at the 10-hour range or 12-hour range for months. And then eventually they do crap out. If you don't charge it right, then they crap out fast.
It's still
That's
a
my
button right there.
downfall.
Yep, still is.
The analog stick is different than the PlayStation.
This is when you have a little bit of weight that you're holding on to and it kind of fits in your palms. It seems nice. Makes me want to do some gaming.
Yeah. What do you think? How many stars?
Since I've never played it, but just holding on to it, you know, again, back to 4. It's just it fits. You know,
Yeah, where I played on.
for me that does seem nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because you know, with the thumbs I have, you know, I don't want to say I have meteor thumbs, but at the same time it does fit real nice that I didn't have to, it could just rest in the palms. I like that.
Want to get to the Wii U controller since we don't have it here and save the PlayStation 4 for
Yeah,
last?
I don't have one anymore. I'm trying to think. It was the one with the game.
It had the screen on it.
Had the screen on it. Okay.
You can do a lot of things with the screen.
Yeah. Did you actually have one?
No, I've seen it and
Okay.
used it before.
I
I didn't
had
have a
one.
lot of experience with it, but I can tell you from an innovation standpoint, I would give it a 4.5 because of the direction they did with it. Overall usage of it, I don't know, man. It's like 3.5 just because of how bulky it was.
Yeah.
But like the innovation of all the things you could do in it and opened up the door for the Switch is what it did.
Yeah.
And the Switch
Yeah.
took off a lot of different things you could do with that. But it did open the door for that. But there's a lot of things you could do with the screen with the games you had. Like comparison wise, like something like Batman Arkham City, if you played it on Xbox, or the Arkham game, if you played it on there, comparatively, at a generation before, you could do certain things with the game that they added innovation-wise with the screen, the touch screen that they had, because it actually a visual screen, and you could actually play the game on your screen without having it be on the TV.
Yeah.
Too. That's why I say innovation-wise.
But you couldn't leave the room. That was the downfall.
I would say 4.5, but overall, I would give it like a 3.5.
Because that was for me, that was the selling point, and that's why I bought it, because I thought you could just take it anywhere.
Like a handheld.
Yeah. So like I thought that, but then when I got it, I was mistaken, and I was kind of upset. But anyways, and so I did actually love that. But the only problem is I could not play it as a handheld.
Yeah.
I tried, but when you held it, your hands were too far apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't really get the hang of using the buttons because you're basically trying to reach. So it was really uncomfortable feeling. One thing that would happen too is you could lose that pencil that came with it.
Yeah.
If you didn't take care of it, you'd lose that pencil. Then you're screwed. I'd still give it a 4 though, just because of what it was. Like you could tell, Nintendo was a giant leap forward from before.
Innovation.
Exactly, you could tell where they were going with it, like where it led to.
It opened up the Switch. And Switch is, you can't argue with. You might not like the games on it, but what they can do on that Switch.
Exactly. When I saw the commercial for the Switch, that's what sold me. The very first commercial I ever saw with the Switch sold me. But what we're gonna do? So with the Switch, we're gonna do I guess we can do a controller like we're doing this, and then also because eventually I'm gonna do a podcast episode of all handhelds. We're gonna go through the handhelds.
There's some other handhelds.
Do the same thing. Do the same thing like we're doing here, but with the handheld. So we'll do that with the Switch as well.
Cool.
You have an opinion on Wii U controller? I don't know how much you've seen it or not.
No comment on that one.
All right. So I say 4.5 just for innovation overall because of how bulky it was, like 3 to 3.5, just because of functionality with certain things. Like if you're trying to play certain things, because it was, but they opened up the door for a lot of what they did down the road. Yeah,
because I still got the games just in case I ever get the system back.
Well, games are expensive depending on what you buy. I
don't remember what games the other reason why I got it was because of Monster Hunters. I'm a big Monster Hunters fan.
They had that.
You could play the Monster Hunters.
Nintendo had that first.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why.
Okay.
The main reasons. What's the reason why I got a 3DS. That's the reason why I got those handheld systems because of the Monster Hunter.
Yeah, it was originally Capcom exclusive on Nintendo, and they have certain ones that they only make for Nintendo still.
And I still got those handhelds because of that game. I bought them from the store, and they're downloaded to the console. And I still got the 3DS and the other handhelds that come with it. But so now we're on the PlayStation 4.
DualShock 4.
DualShock 4. Oh boy, here we go.
To be honest with you, my overall rating on this, because the sticks are better, they're just better. The feeling, I don't feel like they're going to slip off as much like the other previous ones. The way they're shaped, they got an indent. The controller's a little bit wider. It's not as... The triggers are actually triggers. For first-person shooters, they're triggers. This is a solid 4.5. is because the D-pad itself decent, but the analogs, like you could play any type of game on here without an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting games, first-person shooters, action games that use the sticks, racing games. It doesn't matter what it is. RPGs, doesn't matter what it is. It's a solid 4.5. I'm going to give it a 5 because there's, for what it is, it's like solid 4.5. It's not like it's not going to let you down even if you're only an Xbox. Like, oh, it's not up here. But the sticks are farther apart too. They're not like on top of it. They don't feel like they're on top of each other either because the controller's wider.
Yeah.
And it does feel like it grips more because the way the shape is, the way they shaped it, you actually hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like the steering wheel that you had, like you see a race car driver like that. But yeah, it doesn't feel like you're going to lose the controller out of your hand either when you're playing it. Like, you're going to fumble it out of there. Like, it slipped out of my hand. No, it's still, even as worn as this one is, you said it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
It's still the grip on it right here. It doesn't feel like my hand, it's going to go out of my hand. So it doesn't feel like it's going to go flying out of my, It's a 4.5. Not gonna, no wiggle room going down. It's gonna go up.
I haven't held one of these controllers in a while since PS5. But yeah, I really like the feel. I remember when I first got the PS4 and I put this in my hands, I thought this was like a spaceship.
Yeah.
The jump from the PS3 because the way the PS3 feels compared to this, like the PS3, the grips are shorter and it's harder to hold on to. A little bit more narrower.
Mm-hmm.
These ones, it just fits right in your hand.
It feels like it's not going to fly out of your hand.
It feels like it's just going to set right there and not fall.
Mm-hmm.
And everything feels nice. The thumbsticks, analog sticks. And then using this part, this was really a cool upgrade.
You can kind of write on it or click on different things. And
yeah, and then the option to share, to save your videos that you get done playing. That was cool. That was the new introduction to that.
Yeah.
And then the new...
The headset was
the new headset thing right there. Yeah, the new headset port was nice.
Battery life was decent on them compared to other stuff.
Well, when they first came out, the battery life on these was really good, but then they started going cheaper. The batteries started going cheaper, and then I think that, well, I won't say for the PS5 yet because we haven't got there yet. But yeah, the battery life for the newer versions of the controllers suck. You're lucky to get 4 hours out of them, I think.
I do like some of the limited edition controllers that they had for that. I had the Darth Vader controller. I like the design on that. It was more of a shiny, like his outfit, his helmet and stuff is like shiny, that shiny material. The controller itself, if I still had that controller, I wish I did for PlayStation 4. But the material itself on that was a different material than that. It was like his outfit. So it was like shiny and it felt like that. It looked like it was cool, the button layout. But like, yeah, there's things that, like, I know Xbox does stuff with their controllers, but I like some of their controllers, like the color schemes that they would throw limited edition. The orange, they had one like it was like Orange Crush, is the way they call it or whatever. That was pretty sweet looking. And then they would do like I did like when they did a PlayStation, which I never got my hands on because people bought them like crazy. The DualShock 4, but they made it look like even the button design and everything. It was still shaped like that, looked like that, and would function like that, but they made it look like the PlayStation 1. Like the color scheme, the control pad, and everything.
Somebody knew he had one of them.
Yeah, it was like one of those ones that was kind of hard to get your hands on.
I think my dad got one, but he paid an arm and a leg for it.
Yeah.
It was great. It looked like the PlayStation. But yeah, so the other thing I liked about this is the speaker. Like you could actually talk to people through that, and then also the game would talk to you.
Oh, and this bar would light up for certain things. I remember playing Grand Theft Auto 5, and if the cops were after you,
oh wow,
the thing would flash red and blue, like a cop, like ooh, and then it would come through the speaker. Like stuff would come through the speaker if like a phone call, like on certain games, if somebody's calling you on the game, it would come through the speaker.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a total. I'm going to give it a 5-star. That's because everything I played with it was great experience with it. I mean, other than that, later on with the newer ones, the battery life sucked, but on launch, I still actually gave it to my daughter, my PS4, my controller. I still have them because you can take care of things, they last.
Yeah.
So my stuff still works. I just gave it to my daughter, so she uses it now. She plays Call of Duty on it.
You guys pretty much named it all. The only thing that I guess starting off with the negative, and I guess I'll lead in when we talk about other ones, is just The controller, I have no gripes with. The only thing that I would have to do with these ports and how sensitive they are. Because even now with headphones, put them in there if something happens, or with charging, if you got to watch the cord and you got to be really sensitive about how, just like a cell phone, you can't just and that gets wear and tear. But as far as the whole controller itself, it's awesome. I mean, it really changed a lot of things with being interactive, and again with the lights, sound, all that. I mean, it's the whole package. It's really neat. I think it's cool when I don't know if it was this one or even earlier when they started, even with the console itself, being able to have different skins for it, whether it's Spider-Man, Call of
There's a
Duty,
Spider-Man
whatever.
controller
And the
was pretty
skins
sweet
is
for
just
that.
like
There's definitely
You know,
a huge jump from the PS3 to PS4.
Yeah.
Cool.
What's your rating on it then?
I'd give. Wow, I know it can still get better, but I'll still say 5, just in and of itself. For each one should have its own rating, but no complaints on that. Other than anything, just taking care of it with other things, but it's its own side thing.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that generation is gonna be Switch.
The Switch. Okay, let me think.
If you have a control, like
Yeah, I do. I just gotta.
there's certain controllers for it. There's a bunch of different ones that they made for themselves. Like the system itself is a controller, but you can detach the things and put them on and make your own control, and slide them into the thing with the controller.
See, I didn't get a Switch. I know there's with the controllers, you can take the parts, put them together. All this
There's
stuff
solid.
now.
There's solid controller. Like if I was going with like their Nintendo made that's a controller like these are, it would get a solid 4. Like the other thing, even when you take clip the two things off and put it on, it would still probably get a 4. Just functionality, even the system itself, you don't have an issue with. If you're going to do a handheld, if you don't have a handheld, the sticks, the buttons, and the trigger, it's still going to be a 4. It's not going to be a lot of. It's not going to go jump you out of the room like this or anything just because of what But the functionality of it, you don't have a lot of drop off no matter what you're playing on it. If you're playing Mario Kart or Smash Brothers or old school games or first person shooters or whatever you're playing on a Switch or Monster Hunter or whatever you're playing, Zelda. The Switch overall, I'm even going with the controllers that they make themselves they try to do with these.
Well, the Switch, so that makes
It's
it fun
4.
too, where it's more portable, mobile.
Yeah, that's what the innovation with the Wii U with that controller led up to the Switch.
Okay.
That's what they did.
Okay.
And there's a reason it sold hundreds of millions of stinking units of that system. There's a reason for it. I'm not saying the games are necessarily what people want to play on certain things. You're not going to have the level of graphics quality of certain games like what PlayStation 4 had at the time or Xbox One. Certain games, but their Nintendo stuff is still some of the best games ever made. Like the Legend of Zelda game, was it? What's the name of it? The one that was for the Switch, the first one. I played it. That game's awesome. Open world RPG. I'm trying to remember. See, that's my brain's going somewhere else with it. I see. It's like
I didn't get into Switch or
But yeah, that's a 4. It's not going to give me any depth if I play old school. So they had old school arcade games you could play on there. You could play the Street Fighter stuff because they had Ultra Street Fighter 2, which I like that version of the game. Hand drawn animation has extra care of Violent Ken. The evil version, Ryu had evil Ryu. You got Violent Ken, which he's bad like that. They added extra care that I could pull those moves off without an issue with that stuff. So that's why I would give it a solid 4 all the way around. And he's looking for the Switch stuff, but I don't know. You haven't had really any experience with it. You probably just seen them.
Right.
Did you ever handle it in the store when they had? If you were to just look at it, by just looking at it, would you think it would give your rating by just looking at the thing or controllers that they have for it?
Ooh.
If you just were to look at it. I know that's not really giving your rating, but just from a visual standpoint, like this, being a gamer for as long as I could say that's a solid control by just looking at the thing.
Being able to have it and take it with you, I mean, that's better than it's
We
like
have
getting back to
switches.
a handheld. So that's pretty cool.
None of them are here.
I was telling him because of what you could do with a Switch, detach it, and the D-pads, the buttons, the triggers, making the controller that they made like this Nintendo itself. I would give it all of them a 4. Just because I even told him with fighting games, Ultra Street Fighter 2, I could pull those game moves off without an issue.
Oh,
on
okay.
the Switch because I had the game's awesome on Switch. So like I gave it a solid 4 all around the control, like the handheld part of it with the controllers, detaching it and making a controller out of it, or their Nintendo's controllers that they made like this basically for certain games.
Yeah, I got one of those upstairs for the Switch. It's it's just your basic. It looks similar to
Xbox.
Yeah, it looks similar to this, but it's a little bit more like a square oval shape, like like the Nintendo look.
Yeah.
It's got that Nintendo look to it. It's an official Nintendo Switch. It's not an aftermarket controller. But I like that better than using the actual Switch. I can't hold it because it's too. The controller's either too wide apart or the too little.
Yeah, too little.
So I can't. But I don't even care about that
because
of what the system can do. I'm going to give it 5 stars all day long. Like I don't play my Switch anymore. There isn't many games that I like on it, but just the whole entire idea behind it is amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give it 5 stars just because it is what it is.
Yeah, they didn't mess up with even the control system. It's not something like, hey, what are we doing? They innovated, like detaching it from sliding on and doing the handheld, or taking one off and making a controller out of it and connecting it like that. Like the functionality of it doesn't seem like it breaks down easily either.
Yeah.
They seem like they last too.
Yeah,
That's why I give it a solid 4 without. That's no wiggle room either way because you can play anything you want on there. Open world, like I was telling them, the Legend of Zelda game that's on there, open world RPG. Playing the fighting games. I can play old school arcade games out there without an issue. Anything you play on that thing, it's solid. Handheld or otherwise. Mario Kart. Play Mario. That game's awesome. I love that game on that system. But
hey, that's cool.
Mario Kart for the Switch. Never got all the stuff with the DLC, but that's a different story. Try all that stuff out.
While I was away, I figured I'd grab. This is the Xbox One X controller. There is no difference.
That is.
It's better.
There's no difference.
This one's more solid feeling. It's heavier. It feels heavier.
Oh, okay.
It does feel heavier. I can tell it's more weighted. Like right here, is more weighted.
Right.
Like where you hold it, it's more weighted.
I mean, and as far as functionality, it's the same. It's exactly the same as the Xbox One X.
Those are.
It's like the same chassis, most part.
Yeah, it's most parts the same. It just seems more weighted than that one. Like holding it, like I can tell it's a little bit more weighted. A little bit. You can tell it's a little bit just right,
a little bit different,
and the right spots, like where you hold it.
Hey,
it doesn't feel like you're gonna go like.
Or not.
Even with this, you don't feel like you're gonna go flying out and like. Hey!
But think about this: if you made something good, why would
you stick with it? That's why they haven't changed it much over the last few generations.
Keep what you got.
Because it opens up to PC gamers. There's a reason PC gamers they play with these. You could connect a PC with these things. It's a 4.5 in general, just solid. I'm not going to give it a 5 at this rate. You're probably like, oh, you gave older school. But for what it is, it's like there's still going to be some issues depending on what I'm playing. But I'm not going to give it a wiggle room either way based on that because at this point, I'm going to play what I play on the system.
Yeah.
So for what I play and what I would play on that, and it's backwards, I would give it a 4.5. The Xbox Series X.
I don't even remember what I gave the other one. Oh yeah, I can definitely tell there is a little bit difference.
It's a weight
compared to the other one. It's a weight thing.
But it's weighted in the right spot too when you grip the controller.
That's nice. I like how this isn't 2 pieces anymore. This is solid. See how this is 2 pieces.
Yeah.
This is solid. This piece right here. So one less thing to break off, kind of thing. Ports are the same. Yep, it's the same. It's like a USB or something port kind of looking thing, but yeah. I'm gonna have to go with probably 4.5, 5 stars. It's good. It's a good setup.
You're playing Call of Duty on that thing.
Yeah, I can, like I said, I can switch back and forth now, so it ain't a big deal. These can be swapped, and then I can still use it.
Yeah, PlayStation between PlayStation and that now.
I'd give it 4.5, 5 stars. I've dropped them.
They're more.
They're.
It just looks like a swap of color. White, black. No center colors. Huh.
I have charging docks now because I don't mess around with plugging anything in anymore. Just because I learned my lesson with PS3.
Yeah.
All the cords got screwed up from plugging in everything in and out all the time.
Yeah, having to buy a new phone cord or your phone got messed up because the charger port got messed up.
Yep.
What's this one center port right there? Because this one has it where it's green, where this one don't.
It's
Just wonder what it's for.
one's a charging. It's just how
That's pretty much how it is.
Yeah, the charging dock
Rather than
situation.
sitting in, it can.
Yeah. Some of them charge this way from that end,
Yes.
and some you can charge from the other end, but depending on the charging dock you buy.
I was wondering if that was in addition to something. Cool.
There isn't a whole lot, and then, like, you still
I can
get
play that, but as far as
if you get a brand new battery and you keep it charged the way you're supposed to, then they last like 10. You get 10, 12 hours of gameplay.
nice. There's a secret in it right there when it comes to the battery with anything. It's like using it as instructed by the manufacturer.
So what do you think about compared to?
For me, it's just looks. I didn't see a lot of with the balance and all this, and both seemed fine. That just seems like this is a little bit more. It's just weird.
Solid. Not that Xbox, the original Xbox One controllers aren't solid, or Xbox One Series S or whatever they.
Oops. The button's the same.
There's more of a weight. You can tell the weight difference when you hold it in both hands.
Yeah.
It's more weighted
Yeah,
where you need to.
It's weighted differently.
Where you grip it, where you grip it, it's more of a weight to it. So like it feels like it weights in your hand more, like you're not gonna lose it.
Yeah, this seems lighter.
It's
weighted where it needs to, the balance on it. It's not like it's weighted in the middle. You're like, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
With that thing?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so next time we do
Nice.
this with the handheld systems, then I'll make sure I have a switch ready for that.
Yeah, because it's both.
I have 3 switches and I can't find any of them. I mean, the kids, they all got the Switch portable, the
Switch Lite or whatever.
but that's not the same as what we were talking about.
Maybe that's something we could do with other episodes, stuff like that, when we're playing certain games, when we're using those controllers, giving a kind of like a throwback to what we were commenting on, and then here we are playing, and like, hey, well, that's something to add on too.
What would you give if you had just on your opinion of not playing anything? What would you give that just from holding it?
A 3. Got to be different.
The
He's got to put a
lowball it.
He's got to put
I'm gonna kneecap that.
But they can leave it to progression. I just gotta play it, and then it can change my opinion. But I mean, it's interesting how obviously the engineers they make it for a reason. It's supposed to be, but then everyone can have likes or dislikes. But at least with this particular one, for the most I see, other than some of the balance, it seems a little bit there that they have placebo on it, but a lot of it just seems cosmetic. From what I see.
I've never actually.
Did we talk about the PS5 controller?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I've never actually held a PS5 controller in my hand. Go figure that one out.
Yep.
So last but not least,
To me, starting from the first one, I haven't played a lot with the earlier versions, but there's so much that they.
yeah. So you're coming off of this with like nothing.
Playing anything, I know what it would probably play like, but me just holding the thing in there, it gives me the same feel when it comes to the weight.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like where you grip on the controller, it's weighted where it needs to be weighted. It's like weighted more right here, like underneath to hold in your hand better,
Yeah.
so you grip it better.
Ain't that crazy?
The
Just
control-
moving the weight around.
To me, I thought it was more
The pad, the
Go with this
D-pad.
one.
I like the D-pad a lot better than because of the. Be able to,
You like how it's inverted like that?
Yeah.
Not out,
like
outro?
I can.
Yep.
Dragon Ball, Dragon Punch.
Because it's the opposite of the Xbox. Because they're out there. The whole
Triggers are
thing's
decent.
outverted.
The buttons seem
Mhm.
solid. So this is with me. Oh, well, they made the PlayStation button like a. I've seen them, but I haven't seen them up close because I haven't been playing stuff.
I mean, you get a lot of similarities as the PS4. There's a lot of they kept a lot of the perks the same as the
The
PS4.
controller doesn't suck from what I'm just even me not
Right.
playing something on it, just holding it, and the D-pad The button seems solid. The
Well,
trigger
the cool
seems
thing
solid.
is you can use. You don't need the headset. Like if your headset breaks, you can still talk to your friends because you can talk to them through that.
This
and
is a
it
button
is
too,
good,
right?
It'll still light up.
Yeah, and it's good. Like you can
You can blow on it.
you can hear people talking clear as day through it to you,
Mhm.
and then they can hear you talk to them through it.
And the funny thing is, they kind of do like the crystal clear looking D-pad and buttons.
What else?
Is it
I would give it a
clean,
4. A
crisp?
solid 4.5 without playing anything, just from the controller itself. The D-pad looks like I could pull off by just how I can move and do different motions on it. It looks like I could pull off
because
Street Fighter type moves without an issue.
It's like faster maneuvering.
And these seem solid. The analog sticks seem like it's not going to be too much of a. They're still more of a slip compared to PS4. Yeah, they're a little bit more slippery.
Could be the rubber they use too. Could be
it's different. It's different.
It
seems like a little bit more slip factor. All right.
It's supposed to be a
Now
little bit
doing that.
sides.
Yeah, it seems a little bit more of a slip factor. I'm changing it down to 4 just because of that.
Gotcha. All right, so yeah, this is PlayStation 5. I use it all the time. It's wider. It's wider this way and this way
Deeper.
than the PS4. And like I was talking, I like the fact that you can talk to your friends without having a headset, because sometimes the headsets break. Obviously, the ones you get are cheap. But the only thing I don't like is the port wears out. There's a certain one, like the next generation of these controllers, that seems to be the one with issues. So if you plug your headset in there and say you set it down like this, and then you like bump it, it'll ruin that port really easy. And so then you get all the crackling and all that crap because it busts those welds loose or something in there. That's the only downfall that I've seen so far with this controller. Oh, other than the battery life as well. The battery life sucks. Obviously, because you're dealing with more, but you can go into the settings and change all the lights on here, and the dual or the vibrating and all that. You can
sensitivity.
Yeah, you can change it all down lower, so then you can actually get a couple extra hours out of the battery life. You can turn the light off because the light is right in through here.
The border.
Yeah, it lights up everywhere.
Which I like that in comparison to.
So you can turn all that stuff down in the settings, and then you can get a little bit extra battery life out of it if you really, really wanted to. But yeah, just because of that, those few things, the headset port and then the battery life, I'm gonna have to stick with like a 4. Just because of that. But other than that, everything else, the way it plays is nice. The buttons are nice.
I have to agree. I don't want to give a short comment, but that again, it's smooth, it's clean. I like the whole look of it from an improvement. As far as just looks in the overall. I think it just goes good with the actual console itself. I think it's nice how they did that. Other than the port issue, other than out of the box, got to deal with that. I've already gotten a couple controllers for that reason, plus headsets.
Yeah, same with Matthew. He's on his 3rd controller already.
That's a bummer.
I have 2, but I don't. Mine aren't bad.
Yeah,
I just have 2 for split screen.
But as far as I know, with playing the other PlayStation, it seems like it's just been a progression. It's gotten better. It's been easy to play in any game that I've played on. I've never had a problem. The only problem I've had is more likely my joints and my thumb or anything else with playing, because of trying to do multiple things as fast as I can because I'm getting hardcore into a game.
Yeah.
But as far as the controller, it's lasted and it works. As long as it's charged.
Yeah, as long as
I'm
it's charged. Yeah, as long as the stinks is after about 4 or 5 hours of playing, you got to throw it back on the charger.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with it yet. If the charger's low on that, I'm going to be like,
yeah, it sucks.
If you've only had one controller, then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I swap out. I have 2 controllers to swap out.
Yep. So one's being used, the other one's charging. Yep.
That's what you got to do these days. Yep. It sucks, but
there are some great aftermarket controllers for the last 2 generations that that I know from just looking at them that I always wanted to get. If I can remember the names of them, but
I think,
but they would be great on that system, the Switch and everything. It would be, or PC even, because of how the sticks look, how the controller is shaped. They would probably get a 4.5 from everybody, I think. But I don't remember what the name of the controllers are. I have to look that up. But
All right, I guess that's going to conclude this podcast for today, for this episode, anyways. So yeah, I think that went pretty good. That was got a lot of information out.
Oh yeah.
With all these controllers and stuff.
you should have thrown in a spike factor.
Spike.
You know, when you get mad at the
Yeah.
game back in the day when you're a little kid, you throw the controller. Hold up.
Oh,
These held up.
yeah, all the old school.
Yeah,
Old school stuff would hold up
It's
more.
just thicker
You can
plastic.
You throw in the fire. Come on!
Oh, Hulkamania.
Dying 100th time over on the
Kids in
game.
WWE going. Yeah.
So yeah, so if you guys like
Nice.
what you've seen, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like it and share us out. I don't remember.
Just keep gaming.
Yeah, just keep gaming.